Hey, this is Don from Padlock Technologies with another video. We're going to do a quick tour of Cisco Secure FDM. Now, before we get into this, this is the onboard management of FTDs if you didn't have a FMC. So if you don't have an FMC, this is technically onboard management. That's all it is. So I would say this is probably the worst case scenario when it comes to managing, right? Because now that they have CDO, you don't really need to be using this. I'm just going to be totally honest with you here. But if you don't have CDO and you didn't buy the FMC, this is what you're going to have to use to manage it. So let's go ahead and take a look and log in here. So we're going to log in. I don't care about that. So this is what you're going to be, you're going to be greeted with when you first log in. This is technically the device screen. Since it's only one device, this is what you're going to do. So obviously the interfaces, this is where you configure interface. This is where you configure routing, updates, troubleshooting, backup and restore, site-to-site VPN stuff, flex configs, and advanced configuration and device administration. So the last video I did about FMC managed devices, you can see where this is looking totally different from FMC stuff. So if you want to configure interfaces, obviously you go to interfaces and then you configure your interfaces here, right? Real easy, real simple. Problem is though, it doesn't flow as well as the FMC, right? Or the CDO. So if you go to routing, same thing. You have to have your routing here. This is just a default route that I put in here because I have an actual machine behind this that's, sending out traffic. Now, here's EIGRP configurations. When you do EIGRP in the FMC, it's more intuitive. It lays out perfect. Again, this is like the worst case scenario if you have to manage your FTD. But this has made a lot more strides than when it first came out. So I don't want to sound like this is a bad thing to do. It's just you have better options to use it, to manage the box. So if you go to edit, I'm going to show you what you mean. This is how you configure EIGRP or any other routing protocol in FDM. As you can see, this would be very foreign to somebody that's coming from an FMC world. When they see this, they're probably going to say, what am I actually supposed to configure here? And what you got to configure here, what you got to know is the stuff that is technically highlight or available to edit is what you can edit. And then you can turn it off by hitting this minus button that turns off these features. But if you don't know that, and you're coming from an FMC world, this is going to confuse the mess out of you. I've seen this live confuse people. And it's like, I don't know how to configure this. Same thing with OSPF, BGP. It's just, this is how you configure it on FDM. Now you can still run your commands and stuff like that, like your show routes, and it will auto run this. Now this is what I do like this. Not gonna lie to you. I wish they would implement this in the FMC, which is, hey, I can just run a quick command and it just shows me my routes, right? Or I can run a command here with I don't have show OSPF. I got show routes. They don't have show AIGRP, which I think is a little crazy, but they don't have that there. So if we go back to your device summary, I didn't configure backup or restores or anything like that. The objects kind of look like objects on the FMC. But it doesn't have all the stuff that you configure on the FMC. This is why I'm telling you, if you get an FTD, manage it with an FMC or CDFMC, CDO kind of stuff, right? And again, if you wanted to become a customer like me, you don't have somebody on staff, I would connect you into my CDO and manage it from there because it's a lot easier for me to manage it through CDO. And CDO is always available, so you don't have to worry about the extra caution or extra risk of your local FMC blowing up on you and then you can't manage it, right? So that's why I kind of push people over to CDO. Now CDO versus on-prem FMC, there is some differences that you have to weigh out before you just go right to CDO, because there may be some features in CDO or on-prem FMC that CDO doesn't have that you may want. So you have to weigh those pros and cons out. Ports, everything is basic stuff that you would configure. Security zones, you can configure it here. Now, the crazy part about this is when you first deploy this, it doesn't put the interfaces in any of the security zones yet. So if you will deploy something and it doesn't work, and you come to find out you didn't put it in the right zones. So just always look out for that. Application filters, that's what you would do in your ACP rules. URL filtering, geolocation, syslog servers, pretty much the same thing. This is your VPN stuff, which is your IKE policies, and this is phase 1, this is phase 2. This is your, secure client profiles if you want to do that. Identity source if you want to go to, ICE or, AD. Users, obviously you want to create management user certificates. Now, a bunch of certificates you're going to have to create to do like SSL decryption. Secret keys, most people don't even use that. DNS groups is for your local DNS or DNS resolution. Event filter lists, SLL monitors is how you do your WAN, traditional WAN failover. SGT groups if you are doing something with ICE on the back end, but again, it's better to do this with the FMC or CDO. And then SSL cipher, which is if you want to change the ciphers. Policies. Now you will see policies are completely different from what you see in the FMC. Kind of looks the same, but it kind of doesn't. So when I did the video with the FMC, you saw there were like different policy and different menus, right? You can just click in and navigate very seamlessly. It's integrated very well. In this, you got your access control policy, which is your main policy, and then security intelligence. Obviously, I didn't enable any of this stuff. Identity policy, SSL decryption. Your intrusion policies are here. Basic intrusion policies. It's just not, to me, it's just not intuitive enough, right? It will get the job done, but if you want to take some of the more advanced features, again, FMC, CDO. Now, if I want to edit this, you edit it here, and you can see something basic, default internet rule, your file policy here, you got block all, and then you got malware cloud lookup, no block. Now, I'm gonna tell you one thing right now, don't use malware cloud lookup. That's another thing that I catch people doing on their malware policies. They will enable this thinking that it's actually going to do something. And malware cloud lookup doesn't do anything. It looks up a disposition of a file. If it comes back as malware, it just says, hey, that's malware. That is it. Doesn't block it. So if you got an FTD out there right now and you got a malware policy with malware cloud lookup, just turn it off and put it on block malware. Intrusion policies, obviously you got your intrusion policy here. Users, if you were doing an identity policy, but since I don't have an identity policy, obviously this is turned off. URL stuff, I'm not evaluating any URLs. Applications, I'm not really doing anything from an application standpoint, but this is the main flow here, which is, source zone, source network, destination zone. This is just an internet rule. Good thing about this though, is you can go down in here and say show diagram, and it will actually give you a kind of a layout of what that rule is actually going to do. Again, I think they should put this in FMC and CDO, as well as that command run thing. I think they should take some of this and put it in there. It makes FMC a lot better. So we're going to cancel out of that. Monitoring. Monitoring is basically what you would do in the analysis tab on the FMC. So network overview, this is basically the stuff that the FMC or FDM sees as it's going through. User information, if we had identity policies. Applications, these are the applications that it's seen as it, traffic was going through the firewall. Web applications, you can see Microsoft updates, Google web browsing. That's because I have a machine behind this. URL categories, nothing's going to be there because I'm not doing URL filtering. Access lists and access lists and security intelligence rules. This is basically telling me, hey, this rule is being hit. This is the transaction. Now, a lot of this stuff in the FMC would be unified events. I really like this here, which is, it tells you the zone pair that traffic is going to. So you see inside zone, the outside zone, and then it tells you the transaction and how many bytes and stuff like that. So I do like this as well. Destination, this tells you the destinations that are being, traffic is going to. This is something real quick. I like this as well. Attackers, if you had some kind of event, you would see this here, IPS event. Target, same thing here. IPS, any threats, you would see here. File logs, if I was transferring files, file types, you would see that there. Any malware, if you saw it, you see action disposition. So this would say, hey, this is malware or not, do something. And then SSL decryption. If I was doing SSL decryption, right now I'm not doing anything that's, decrypted traffic. You just see all my traffic is encrypted and I'm not decrypting anything. So, and then you got your events down here. If you really want to get into like all your events, these are my connection events that you're going to see popping up pretty soon. Mostly DNS stuff because I'm not really doing anything with the machine behind it. So you would see all your events here, intrusion, file, malware, security events if you wanted to do that. And then the session would basically be who is actively logged into the FDM. So that is really it. Now you can run some commands here, like this little button up here as the CLI console. So if I wanted to do show EIGRP neighbors, it's going to run that command, and that's the switch downstream. It shows the EIGRP neighbors that I'm going to. You see the queue count is 0. Your queue count always needs to be 0. If not, you have an issue with, the hello packets. So I know that adjacency is up and running. You can run a bunch of commands through here. Again, Cisco, if you see this video, you need to implement this in FMC. If I was able to do this, and pick, like if I had an option that when I hit that button, it says, okay, CLI console, and it show me each individual device that I have, and it says CLI console, and then it pops up this menu and I could just type it from there. That would be awesome, because the troubleshooting tab, and then you got to go into another section. It's a little convoluted on the FMC. So I like this a lot. This kind of reminds me of Fortinet. I know I shouldn't say that in the Cisco video, but this kind of reminds me of Fortinet. Then if I wanted to actually push configurations, you would hit this configuration. You would see it here. You can see your pending changes, deployment history. If I hit deployment history, it takes me to, what configurations were pushed down. Now, HA on the FDM is a piece of work. This is why I'm saying CDO or FMC. Doing HA on here, it's not hard, but it's very convoluted. And it's, again, for what it is, it gets the job done, but you just got to be careful trying to configure that stuff. And then your task list basically is the task that you saw or any task that you did. I'm just going to remove any completed tasks. Now I don't have any tasks here. Just go back to air. And then you got your question that'll pop up another like dashboard if you got any questions you want to ask or help. And then you got your API Explorer, which is you can hook in here, APIs and hook in APIs here. So I did not do register with cloud services. And again, high availability has not been configured. If I wanted to configure high availability, you would need 2, and then you have to have your primary and secondary, and then you would go through, configuring HA, which is totally different. Again, it looks totally different on the FMC and CDO. So that is FDM in a nutshell. If you are somebody that does not have the staff to support implementing FTDs, reach out to me. Let's talk. Because again, I could hook you into CDO, into my CDO, manage it for you. We could do a co-manage kind of thing so that, hey, if something were to go wrong, you have somebody as backup. I hope this video was informative. Please share, like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Have a nice day.